the story, I'll ask you, Geneva, what were the core tenements that you wanted to get across as far as what this Fallout show was going to be? And as you were going through each one of the episodes, what were the sort of like guiding principles that you wanted to make sure this audience would be able to see?
Well, it's an open world game, so everyone's experience of playing the game is a little different. So we knew right from the start that we didn't want to copy exactly one of the stories from one of the video games. So we knew we were going to craft our own story. And Jonah had called, and this was back in 2019, that he was getting the rights to Fallout. I had been an admirer of his for so long. I was just thrilled that this would be a great opportunity to work together. But immediately I knew we had to bring in my friend Graham, who's one of the best comedy writers I know in television, because the tone of Fallout is what's absolutely sacred to the video games. They have this incredible mix of comedy and drama. So I felt like the two of us maybe together should do it, and Graham made that face that he's making right now.
Let me guess, you don't take compliments well.
No. Sorry, that was the Robert Durst impression, right? No. Yeah, I don't like compliment, and that's why the show doing really well has been a complicated experience for me.
Well, my question to you is kind of on the other side of it, because as she said, there's things that are sort of these core principles that you had, but you got to throw a lot of it out, and you've got to say, hey, we don't care about breaking these rules, we don't care about sort of changing up the world. What were some of the things that when you were looking at it, you knew, hey, this is veering elsewhere as far as the story, but you knew it was going to be one of the reasons why this is a show that people have nearly watched for 3 billion minutes already. That was announced today, and it's 91% certified fresh and tomato level. All of you showed up today to see it. I know you're very uncomfortable right now, sir, but what was sort of the stuff that you had to throw away when you were sitting down to adapt this?
I mean, really like half of everything, because we write the drama parts, and then we get too dramatic. Yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce the word. And we write the comedy parts, and we get too goofy. So we just had to generate. There's just a lot of waste in the process, And and I did feel like my job was, because Jonah's a smart guy. Geneva's a very, very smart person as well, and I was like, okay, my job is dumb. I'm the dumb guy, and I was like in a way that I was like, no, I'm passionate about this. And I felt like that was my job, and I also knew I couldn't win too many arguments about getting the show to be this dumb, because then people are like, now I'm just watching just people humiliate themselves in the dirt. And it needed also a dramatic thrust as well, which is true of the games. It has serious stuff in there, and some humor along the way. But yeah.
Jonathan, sir, I mean, success like this, I think, on television, you've had some experience, just a little bit, with crafting, seminal shows that are instantly iconic that people are going back to watch every week. But directing the first episode of this one, you really had to set the stage for the world that we were going to be living in throughout this. And I love the introduction that we get in that first 7 minutes with this gentleman right here. And I would just like you to sort of talk about how you approached that pilot episode, because really when you look at it, it's like 4 introductions. It's the world and these 3 characters told in chapters, but it's gripping right until the final moment. So yeah, how did you approach sort of setting that world together in that pilot episode?
Well, step number 1 is try to collaborate with incredibly brilliant writers, check. And step number 2 is collaborate with incredibly brilliant actors and HODs. The big challenge with this one was, usually with adaptation, often with adaptation, you are adding so much. You are adding images. We took a book like The Prestige, those characters live in your mind and your imagination, but then we're going to make them flesh and blood. It's not easy, but you have a bit of a head start. With a series of incredibly successful franchises of incredibly beautiful, epically scaled, vividly detailed video games, you are not adding things. In fact, you're actually taking some things away. So there's enormous sense of responsibility there, but also an enormous challenge. I think part of the divisional labor here was, with Geneva and Graham masterminding the show, my end of this from the beginning was to try to figure out how on earth we're going to realize this. How are we going to make this something we can photograph with a camera? And that was all about finding the most talented HODs that we could possibly work with. Stuart Driver, who's our DP, Howard Cummings, our production designer, Amy Westcott, who did the costumes, the beautiful costumes, Jay Worth, our vis effects supervisor, who we endeavored, and this was part of the secret with this, is we have the most talented vis effects team in the business, and we endeavor every day to give them as little to do as possible. Right? This is something I learned from my brother, is you know, if you can do it for real, there's always a more emotional component to it. There's always something more with incredibly talented cast. But if you can get them down to Namibia and put them in an astonishingly breathtaking landscape, then they're freed up to do all kinds of other things. They don't have to, they're not like in a green screen and kind of pretending. So we took that philosophy of, especially with video game series, can we bring as much reality and put it in front of the camera as possible, and shoot it on film the way that we like to. So I think for that opening sequence, we knew it was an introduction to the world before the world, which is not our world, which is challenging in and of itself. But we wanted to start, even though the games and the series has this epic scope, we wanted to start with something very, very personal, with this very personal, almost microscopic emotional moment with Walton's character and his daughter. And I think, you know, we wanted to find that human center in the middle of this vast story. And that's all about having amazingly talented people to work with. So.
Yeah, you didn't name drop him, but his brother's Christopher Nolan. Just thinking about the talent in my family is making me upset now. I'm glad that y'all are storytellers, because we all get to enjoy it. Mr. Walter Goggins, sir, I loved you in this series. I loved all of your actor performances. But you have such an interesting task that you're playing two very distinct characters who are actually the same man. But I don't think if they met on the street, they would have anything in common.
Swagger.
Swagger, yeah.
Sense of humor.
Yeah, swagger and sense of humor. Talk about that first introduction and where you are in that one, because I think I heard you say in a different interview how what we see play across your face as the bombs finally fall is you're really watching humanity die in your eyes. And I think that's a very difficult thing for an actor to convey, especially in what's essentially like a non-verbal scene, but you do it so brilliantly. And again, it's just 7 minutes with you that we sort of find you in that world. So yeah, I'd love for you to talk about that first introduction part.
A very kind thing to say. Thank you very much. That was the very first day that I played Cooper Howard. And we, so I didn't really understand who he was, even though I had an idea of who he was. And it only took 5 minutes in the chair that day. So instead of 2 hours, which is extraordinary, it's like, wow, what do I do now? But I read it on the page, and what Geneva and Graham had written resonated deeply with me kind of leading up to this. Jonah and I, we'd been working together for a while at that point. I didn't know exactly how he was going to photograph it. But I did understand that Cooper Howard, who was experiencing a very kind of difficult part in his life and fallen from where he was as this actor to just doing tricks at a children's birthday party, and then the day kind of progressed, and all of a sudden, this benign kind of simple conversation that he's having with his daughter turns into the end of the world, and it wasn't really until we were in the middle of filming it and I was with this child, I'm a father, that I understood exactly what the opportunity that Graham and Geneva and Jonah had given me, and that was to experience the end of the world for everyone in the world. And that it was a very big responsibility, and like anyone that has a child, you want to protect them. And it was horrifying. It was terrific, terrifying to kind of experience. And but that's just what we do, right? I mean, as actors, you live in your imagination. You turn yourself over to an imaginary set of circumstances. Like my acting teacher said, "What do you think they did? Who do you think Richard Dreyfuss was looking at in Close Encounters? The grip's ass." That's what he was looking at. And so yeah, they just set the table, and then you just try to live in that moment as honestly as possible, and it was a real gift.
Yeah, I mean, everyone here got to see that tonight. First of all, who's seen past episode 1? Like, how many of you have seen the whole season? Okay, good. For the folks of you that didn't raise your hand, we're gonna get into some things. So, sorry, but it's still a great show. You should watch every episode, even if we tell you some things that you maybe didn't know. Ella, I want to bring it to you, ma'am, because your character is both a ray of sunshine and just the best version of like, oh, poor dear, what's about to happen to her in this series. And to go from okie dokie to where we eventually go, where she's traipsing along with a severed head, looking very like, apocalyptic in her, that is a journey to sort of take that through the incremental parts of this episode. And more importantly, because we see her in this sort of very guileless, thinking that everything is going to be okay world, by the time we get to the final episodes, if you don't take that walk carefully, it feels like a betrayal of the character. I was curious for you, how was that for you as the actor going through that each week? Or did you sort of like map it out each week with each director? Or did you have to go back and check in, like, where am I at in this journey? And what sort of helped guide you to make sure? Because by the time we get to the end where she's doing some things, we know that this is real. Like everything that she went through in that journey, it's been earned for her to turn into what she's into.
Yeah, that's a great question, which I will try to answer well. I think this is the thing that I love about doing TV is you don't know. And when I signed on to this, I knew I was playing Ned Flanders in the Apocalypse, and that's what so I had no idea where it was going to end up. I mean, I trusted the writers, I trusted Jonah, and I knew it was going to be amazing, but I had no idea how what Lucy was going to go through. And I think that probably works, is that it feels authentic because Lucy's core up until the last episode is intact. It's the most intact thing about her belief in the golden rule. That's what gets her through. And I really loved that journey of, first naivety is bred from inexperience. In Lucy's case, she's naive and innocent because she doesn't know any better. She just was born and raised in the vault. And then when she meets the Ghoul and she goes through what she goes through, choosing to continue to believe in goodness, to continue to believe that people have goodness somewhere in them, even when you're facing evil. That's a choice, that's brave. That's no longer inexperience or naivety, it's courage. And I think so, that the idea of Lucy, the essence of Lucy is the same, but it changes, as it always does for people as they go through the human experience. I don't know, you just gotta trust the writers and the directors.
Did you have any moment where you were like, I want her to give up, I'm not feeling this, it's too, where you maybe fought with that a little bit, because it does take her a while, I would have broke by episode 3, so.
I would say somewhere around the time I had no shoe, a missing digit covered in gold slime, I was like, go home.
Give up. Aaron, your character's kind of on the other side where Lucy's coming from this completely safe place, and your character is coming from never a moment of safety from the moment he was a child, but they kind of meet each other in the middle as far as their ambitions and their hopes and their loves. And what I think is the most interesting is the character that we meet, I don't know if y'all know this, but what I love the most is how earnestly y'all are in that Rihanna song of I Found Love in a Hopeless Place. We're not going to say with who, but you can make your guesses. I think that's an interesting turn. When we get to that point in the series, it was just, it was so unexpected to me. Y'all hinted at it, but I didn't expect it to be there. Was that interesting for you to approach, to know oh yeah, we're right in the middle of a love story? Or did they tell you from the beginning this is where it was going? Sing it.
No, I think that we always could tell how all of these characters are speaking to each other's stories when we're carrying the story. I think we could always see that. And it is an amazing dance, that's constantly happening, especially by the time we get to the end and what's happening to all of them at the same time, But as far as the love story, yeah, I think that I think we did an incredible job as a collaborative effort of making it really sort of feel like it happened naturally. And I think that was the goal. That was what Graham and Geneva were writing. That was the conversations I had with Jonah. And, by the time we get to a connection before parting, it felt like, we got to have this amazing moment where our show is doing so many things at one time. We're saying so many different things at one time, and we've got heads touching, with heads touching, it's like, and it's only the tone that we really were able to find that, by the time we get to a moment like that, it actually does, it crescendoed in a different way because of that, those dualities.
Whose idea was that? I just have to ask about the head thing.
We don't keep score. It'll drive you crazy.
We know. Hold on. We know. Mr. Kyle McLaughlin, sir, I think for folks that don't know.
Would be touching head. 3.5 minutes would be welcome. Do it. Okay.
I'm not going to subject everyone here tonight.
We would listen. Listen, the end of the episode with these folks that just saw, we see your kidnapping, and for anybody who hasn't seen past that, we don't really know when we're going to pick up with your character again. But the one thing we can say, based on what we see in episode 1, is when Lucy walks out of the fallout shelter, that is exactly what your character has been praying and hoping and doing everything in his power to prevent. And I think it would be very interesting and give a lot of sort of allusions to your character if you could talk about what you think he would be thinking if he learned that when she did it. Like if he could watch the video of her walk out and say okie dokie, what would the overseer say?
I don't know if I completely think that he isn't aware that something like that might happen. I think his entire preparation of her has been to be the best, to be able to do really anything. And so in some ways I think, I don't want to say at the end, okay.
Stuff happens, y'all.
Stuff happens. I think he's surprised, but I also think he's, I don't know if proud is the word, but he's like, all of the effort that he put into her, he sees. And it makes it for him even more difficult knowing what's coming, knowing what she's going to learn about him. So, yeah, I think that there's a realization that she's kind of like done more than he could ever possibly have imagined she could do, and I think there's a sense of pride there deep down somewhere about her.
That's amazing. Thank you for saying that. Also, you're having a conversation with the people who've seen it to the end and the people who haven't.
I know.
I'm telling you, you're gonna laugh.
You gotta watch it. I gotta tell you.
Spoiler alert, characters change and evolve over 8 episodes. Relax.
Mr. Walter Goggins, sir, I hope you have seen this because the one thing I will say, you said that swagger and comedy was 2 things that Cooper Howard and the Ghoul would have with each other, but I don't know if you know this, but people think the Ghoul is hot, and the internet is spoken, and I particularly love, they think you're hot too, but
If I had known that, I would have cut my nose off. For real, the shield would have been like, no shaving.
They do. I've seen the TikToks. He is a hear me out for folks that know. But I love this. I'm gonna get to it. This is important. I love that was by design. That when you were sitting with the incredible artists that were working on this from the makeup chair in your conversations with Geneva and Graham and everyone, you wanted to make sure that he actually did have that charisma, that swagger, that attraction, and that wasn't, from Jonah, all of you guys, that was part of it, that was baked in. And I'd love for you to talk a little about how, I don't think folks would have expected that from the Ghoul, but we're glad that you did it.
Yeah, I'm glad I did too. No, it was when we started talking right out of the gate, and I found out that I was playing the Ghoul and not this character that I read on Wikipedia when I was looking at Fallout, this game. Right out of the gate, we all talked about. We wanted Jonah was very vocal about it early on. We all wanted the audience to lean in to the experience. and not be repulsed by, like by his face, but rather to be interested and to get closer and want it to be like a roadmap, really, of the absorption of 200 years of pain, walking the earth in an irradiated landscape. And so it was like, how do we set out to achieve that? We had Vincent van Dyke, who's one of the best prosthetic makers in the business. And then we had, who happens to be a very good friend of mine, Jake Garber, apply these pieces. And it was a process kind of going back and forth. And we all looked at a number of drawings, right out of the gate. And then we did 3 applications. And I'm going to say that the very first time we were, I'm going to say 80% there, don't you think? And then Jonah would come up and look at it and say, okay, let's take a nick out of his ear. Like, what does that mean? And what was that story? And do we ever tell that story? What if we do something here and we do something here? And the one thing that I was so afraid of was being able to convey whatever it was that was going on inside. And so they made these pieces thin enough in order to kind of make that happen. And it was a process after trying it on 3 times and then taking this Ferrari out for a spin on the first day of filming with all of the effort of all of these amazing artisans kind of behind it. I was just deeply insecure about the whole process, to be quite honest with you, and just kept looking at Jonah saying, are you reading anything? Like, do you see, like, is there anything going on? Or I just like, this is just bad humor. And he said, no, man, we see it all. Everything you're doing is all in your eyes. You're free to do whatever you want. And once, I felt confident about that and had permission to do that, then we were just kind of off to the races.
One of my favorite moments on set was the first day with Walton shooting, and we're in this is a joke now, but it's not by design, but we often start in at the deep end. It was very hot. We're in upstate New York at a place called Verplunk, which is this quarry that filled in with water overnight. Amazing spot. Very hot. Thunderstorms coming and going. Walton's got the makeup for the first time. They offer you a cool suit. You're a tough guy, so you turn it down.
Idiot.
We had spent a lot of time talking about Walton's, this is Walton's instrument, right? So we put all this shit on it. It's not going to work. We got to fit it out. We got to be really delicate here. We got to get to one of the biggest challenges. And Vincent and Jake did this incredible job of actually making your head look smaller. You have a big noggin. You have a perfectly normal size noggin. We needed to make it look a little shrunken, which is actually very, very hard to do. You're not adding, you're trying to make it look as if you're taking things away. So these pieces are very delicate and all put on. Walton came to set. It was a big day. It was the first moment, beginning of a very long journey. And I hope it's okay if I say this. Sometimes, I'll come and greet an actor and bring them to set for the first time, and Walton was crying. And it's emotional. And this is
emotional. It's very emotional. First days.
Yeah, so we get him to set. I'm thinking, God, Walton, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna do well. This is gonna be great. You're gonna kill him. And then I realized he wasn't crying. He was literally sweating out of his eyeballs.
You didn't say, are you okay? I said, yes, of course I'm fine. What are you saying? So because you're crying, I'm not crying, and he stuck his finger up to my eye, and water just came pouring out.
Oh my gosh.
I got a cool suit the next day. Let's just be honest.
Suffering for his art. Vote for this man. Seriously.
Yes.
Ella and Aaron, I will say this to both of you. They put y'all through it. They put it, he already talked about it, but they put y'all through it. In episode 1, you're doing the stunts. I don't know how much of it was you, but I saw a lot of it. I saw a lot of your face. Aaron, that suit, I know they don't have you into all the time, but you're getting jumped like every other episode later on. What was the most daunting part of this physically for you guys? Because between the comedy and the lines and the tone and the costumes and everything else, there's also a very huge physical toll that both of you had to play these characters. Because again, there is no days off in the apocalypse. This is a show that brings you through it. So I'd love for you to talk. What was maybe your day where you were like if you want to preview, this was the episode I wanted to go home. This was the episode it was really hard.
Yeah, I was trying to be a tough guy like Walton on episode 3 when I got 6 guys jumping me from my suit, and honestly, yeah, I'm doing everything I can. I don't want Coach to take me out because I feel like I won't get put back in the game. And The most daunting of it is, I don't know, I'm 35. I know I look younger, but
Yeah.
yeah, I have to keep my body ready and healthy. And that day after, I couldn't walk, you know? I woke up and, you know, like hobbled over to my phone to call, you know, home and talk, and everybody was like, "You okay?" I was like, yeah. But yeah, it was extreme, and it honestly really rewarding at the same time. I think it's part of the aspect of such a grand IP that we're all working on is that we really care, and I think we all really want to sacrifice for it to be successful, and I don't think that's going to stop.
Ella, I think you already mentioned that the Digit Day was pretty bad for you. Also, for folks that don't, she's not American. She's doing this in like a different accent, which again, that's like a Simone Biles thing. The difficulty is higher. This is not good. But I'm wondering if you've gotten to hear any of the fan incredible reactions to the show, because as I said, this is the most watched show ever on Prime Video. I mean, y'all are all here as a testament to how popular it is. Have you gotten to sort of see, like, between the edits on TikTok, people are like really going nuts for the show, and they really love all of your performances and everything you guys have gotten to do. Have you gotten to bask in that a little bit yet?
Not really. I try to stay off the internet when my shows come out. Just, you know, mental health, like myself.
But this is a good one. Like, you should see. Everybody really likes it. Well, what was the specific moment for you that you'll cherish about the production of it? It's a special day, something that you got to do that you never expected to do.
Honestly, no, this show is crazy. No 2 days were the same. I got to do things I couldn't even make up if I tried. I couldn't come up with them, and I got to, I don't know, pet a baby deer and get dunked into the water with a diver under the water. I got to get thrown off things and all these crazy stunts, and it really had the best time. Like that thing you said of put me in coach every single day. I was exhausted, and you know it's a long shoot, but you know some people go to work and they're just like filming a scene where they sit and have coffee with their friend in a cafe. We're not doing that. We're making a weird, fun show with the best crew and cast, and I can't pick one moment because this is really cheesy, but every day was really so fun.
I just have to add one thing about like the hell Ella went through on this show. Graham and I at one point in production, pretty early on, got a big talking to from our line producer about what a hellish schedule we were putting this actor through, that he'd never seen anything like it, that we were insane, and that we had to ease up on it. And Graham and I were like, yes sir, we will absolutely write the later episodes to be really easy for Ella, we promise. And then we didn't do that at all.
And I thank you for that.
Well, this brings me to my other thing you had to balance a lot. You talked about these head of departments, and the fact that the thing I think was the most interesting balance is the tone to what the video games brought to you, but also the homages to Western, to comedies, to Apocalypse. Did you guys have a guide board for when you knew you were going too far in one way or the other way? Like, what was sort of your litmus test for like, okay, this is the take or the place that we need to go through? Because again, it starts on the page, where these guys then take it into performance. It kind of has to be set within those parameters. So how did y'all know when you were striking that right tone between paying homage to the brilliant places that you're playing in, but also setting something new? Graham, I'll start with you.
It's tricky. I'm not sure we knew until the show came out that, you know, we were really in the edit deciding a lot of this stuff. Jonas and you and I looking at things and like, is this too broad? Is this too grim? We had cuts that were too grim. We had cuts that were too silly. Yeah, so it really was feeling it out. And what these guys did by, you know, it's a massive show, and incorporating some like it with intention, some silliness into it is actually one of the most subversive things, you know, I've ever seen. I've done silly shows before, but I haven't done silly shows shot by the guy, you know, from Westworld with the DP from the piano. And we're doing the, for those of you who haven't seen, I apologize, the chicken pucker scene. And I was just afterwards like, just hugged Stuart Dryberg and being like, thank you for letting me pee in your beautiful frames. But actually, I think it's like, and I can kind of be dismissive about it, but I think it's really, really important to the tone of the show, the sort of the openness to insanity. I think you could have, and to Amazon, who allowed us. This is a crazy swing. When a budget gets this high, understandably, people get a little conservative, and this show didn't really flinch at that, and I'm really grateful for the Jonah and for Amazon for making space for that. So
I'm going to take it a little bit different to you. There's tons of touches from the screenplay that maybe don't exactly translate, and based on this, I'm sure there's crazy liner notes that you guys put into every single episode. Do you have a particular one that you think is interesting? If folks go back and rewatch season 1, that they'll see sort of your non-verbal aspects of the world that you built, that you wrote into the screenplay, that we kind of see visually, but isn't as maybe spelled out?
Oh God. Well, I just think Howard Cummings managed to jam, and Jonah with his directing, jam so much into the frame that honestly nothing is coming to mind. They managed to fill this world with incredible details and tiny sight guides and everything. So
what is your favorite tiny sight gag, Jonah? Anybody? Is there something, an Easter egg that you're like, hey guys, go back, watch episode 3 because you might see this?
well, if you're on Easter morning being like, the Easter egg's over there, you're kind of doing it wrong.
I know. Or maybe like, pay attention to this area, or one that you particularly liked that was a touch that maybe wasn't inside the video games. Jonah, anything?
Oh, I don't even know where to start.
What about the hello to the farmer? I always like that. It's like in video games, you often on your screen see a gun pointed at someone, but you're trying to say hello to them. And it's this amazing moment, I think, of like realizing, oh, I'm pointing this gun.
It's a lovely moment. I was distracted on that scene because we had sent word. We were shooting in a place called Kolmanskop in Namibia. This incredible abandoned diamond mine that we had seen pictures of for Westworld. But it didn't work for Westworld because of waste and reconstruction. The American West is wood, it's not brick until civilization arrives. So I found a way to, as a mental note, and lunch with Todd Howard, we pretty much agreed on the spot to make the show. And on the drive home, I said, I don't know what story we're telling, I don't know what we're doing, but I got one location. So cut to, okay, God bless Amazon, and out we went and shot in Kolmanskop. And we had sent word, it was an incredibly beautiful place, but it is the Skeleton Coast. I mean, it is an absolutely barren place. And I had sent word that we heard the wind was going to be up that day. So we had sent word that we adjust the costume for our farmer, so he's not actually having to wear a diaper. We like the diaper. That was exciting. Sorry, God, it's gonna be a little miserable. Luckily, word did not get through the costume department. So that is a lovely. There are a number of. I think my favorite gag on video game logic to screen is Maximus's giant golf bag filled with guns. This is what was absolutely great. And they did have. I don't know if you're aware of this. They came. Our incredible prop department came to us with 3 sizes of bag, and I did pick the biggest one.
That's funny. Let's see Aaron carry that.
Incredible. I believe that is all of the time that we have for you all today, but there is a lovely reception after this. I want to thank